So what is a pachachka? Well, a pachachka is a type of presentation that uses 20 slides in 20-second increments to tell a story or to communicate an idea. In this case, we're talking about how to do a pachachka. Now, with a pachachka, you don't want to use too much text. You definitely don't want to use bullet points, big blocks of text. You want to avoid reading directly from the slide at all, because the idea isn't to include text. The idea is to include as many pictures as you can so that you can communicate ideas visually. Now, when you do choose your pictures, you want to make sure that your pictures are all related to the pachachka. As soon as you saw this, you probably started thinking, what in the world does this have to do with giving a pachachka? And the answer is almost nothing. It's something my son made when he was like 3. Already, though, we're derailed, and we don't want to do that in your presentations. In order to keep your presentations on topic and thematically linked, we want to use some very simple rules. First of all, we want to make sure that we're using serif fonts and not, sans serif fonts and not serif. Secondly, we want to make sure that our pictures fill as much of the screen as they can, and when they can't, it's best to use a black background rather than anything else. Now, your actual slides and your presentation, you need to think about them as much as possible in terms of what follows what. It's almost like a storyboard. How do I put this picture together in a way that logically flows from point A to point Z, just like this cartoon strip here does? You don't just put the pictures in any random order. They have to go in a particular order. Now, you might actually use text sometimes, okay? You don't want to use text in big chunks, but sometimes you want to put one word in front of people so they're thinking, ooh, this slide is about text. I can stay on top of that. It's actually a really helpful thing, but don't use more than a single word or maybe a single phrase, or that's a problem. Now think about it in terms of this. Your audience, it's like you're walking your audience through a museum, and they're looking at one picture for 20 seconds and they're soaking it in, and they're thinking about the meaning and the texture and the nuance of that picture, and then they're going on to something else, okay? So you've got to choose your images very, very carefully, and you're probably only going to want one image. Now you got to be careful with this one image, because sometimes you see something on Google Images and you're like, that's perfect. And so you take it and you blow up a small image to be huge and it looks like garbage. You can't use low resolution images. That'll automatically get points deducted from your pachachka. Don't do it, it'll look like this, which is garbage. We don't want garbage. Garbage is bad. So when you tell your story, when you're choosing your images, I've talked a lot about those, but you've got to make sure that your images support your story rather than your story supporting your images, okay? So choose your topic first, write your script first, and then come back around to what's what. Otherwise, you've got the cart before the horse. We want the horse before the cart. We've made a mistake. The last thing I would say about your pachachka is that you must practice, because if you don't, it's going to feel very disjointed, very disconnected, and your audience is going to have some frustrations with you, okay? Even this one right here, just to do this much, this is my 3rd take because I was very unhappy with the first couple, and I've got a script, okay? So that's the full thing, okay? That's all you've got to do is that little chunk right there, and I think you're going to be in good shape. So let me just tell you a couple things. In order to do this, you're going to need a computer with internet access. If you're watching this, you're doing great, unless it's on a phone, in which case you're going to need a computer. You're going to need some familiarity with Google Slides or PowerPoint. Most of my information will be in Slides. I actually prefer PowerPoint, but I know that everybody's got Google Slides if you're home, so we're going to do that. If you use PowerPoint, if you prefer that, I can get you our information about how to do a couple things individually. Just shoot me an email. You'll need a topic, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And then a partner is not an option because we're separated right now, and I'm not going to tell you to get together with somebody else. That's a problem right now. I don't want you spreading anything if you've got it. I want to keep you healthy if you're healthy. So that means that instead of 6 minutes and 40 seconds, your presentation is going to be 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and it is up to you. But you say, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Well, cool. I want you to pick one of the following. I want you to think about an injustice in the world today, okay? There are all kinds of things. Maybe it's something related to the coronavirus. Is it fair that we're, selling masks to other parts of the world when we still need them here in some cases? Or maybe you want to talk about racial injustice or socioeconomic injustice. It doesn't even have to be something that's happening right now. It could be a historical event that you want to talk about. That would be fine. Excuse me. Ooh, sorry. Is the right way to do it. You could think about an issue in our school or our community. Are you concerned about whether or not people are following proper social distancing? Are you concerned about the dress code? Are you concerned about the way that free and reduced lunches are handled? I mean, all kinds of things you can talk about, the grading system, anything. Or you can talk about a product or an event that's had a major impact on the world. You could talk about coffee. You could talk about iPhones. You could talk about computers as a whole. You could talk about the wheel or pens. Events could be the United States, the American Revolution, the Civil War. You could talk about the coronavirus, except for Jacob. He's already done a speech on that. Sorry, Jacob. So any of those things would be fine. Now, what I want you to do is to use the Google form link in Classroom to submit your topic, okay? That's what I need you to do, and I think you're going to be just fine if you do that, okay? As always, guys, I am here to help you. My wife is vacuuming, and my dog keeps opening the door. I'm here to help you, so don't hesitate to shoot me an email. In the meantime, I hope you're staying home. I hope you're staying healthy, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. More than the back end, less on how you're making one and more on what it is. Some of you guys might say, I know what it is. I did one for Mr. Stone or for some other teacher, but I kind of want you to put some of that out of your mind because that's not necessarily exactly the same as what we do here. I'm going to introduce the idea to you, and then we're going to move forward. Just a quick word. Some of you might say, it looks like Pechakucha, Mr. Gallion, not Pachachka. Totally get it, but this is actually a Japanese word, and Pachachka is the closest way to pronounce it to English. So what is a Pachachka? What does it look like? Well, it's usually 20 slides in PowerPoint or Google Slides. Each slide is automatically up for 20 seconds, and then it advances. Okay, I should be able to hold my hands here, and you would be able to see a Pachachka advance. Now, this at this point is not a Pachachka, so I have to advance these manually. That means that every time you do a full Pachachka, it's 6 minutes and 40 seconds, 400 seconds, okay? Now, there's some good news. Because we're at home and you're not working with a partner, you are only going to have to worry about 10 slides. They're still up for 20 seconds each, but that means your Pachachka is going to be an individual one. It's not a partner one. You've only got to worry about 3 minutes and 20 seconds, okay? So technically what we're doing is not a full Pachachka, but I think that'll be easier for you. Now, there's some great things about a Pachachka. One is it prevents you from rambling, okay? You only have 20 seconds to get all this content out, and so you can't just go on and on and on about something. And that feeds right into the second point, which is the audience doesn't have time to get bored about what you're talking about, because as soon as they start to wander off, there's a new picture, there's a new concept, we're moving on to the next thing. It's also really helpful because it reminds the speaker that PowerPoint is for the audience, okay? Right now, this part of the presentation, frankly, probably helps me as much as, if not more than, you. Like, this gives you an idea of exactly where we are, but, no biggie. Do you really need that? Probably not, okay? That's not really what PowerPoint's for, okay? PowerPoint is for the audience. If you're not using it for the audience, you probably ought to use a different format, right? Like using note cards would be good, which is why I've encouraged you to do that. PowerPoint or slides should be for visual aids. So this helps you think about that. In fact, that's the reason that we talked about all those other things with PowerPoint. And then we're moving into this. Because if you can do this, then when you move back into that realm of, your normal educational type of PowerPoint, if you're remembering that, oh yeah, this is actually for my audience and not for me, then hopefully that'll help you follow those rules a little bit better. The last advantage is that it forces you to know your content well. In order to really simplify things well, you've got to know what the overarching ideas are, what's the most important to communicate, what's not important to communicate. And so hopefully you know your stuff really, really well. Now, the downside to Pachachka is we're going to know really quickly if you don't know your content. Sometimes you're giving us just a bunch of fluff that we could have looked up without doing any research at all. It also shows up if you're not prepared because you've got these awkward pauses. So you're supposed to have a slide up for 20 seconds. Remember, you're not automatically doing it. And so you talk for about 10 seconds and then you do this. super weird, okay? Now, it might be a little bit less weird when we do these online than if you did them in person, but I promise you, in person, it is super weird to watch you just stand there without knowing what to say. Now, sorry, I'm going to take the next section of this presentation, and I actually am going to insert a mini Pachachka, okay? This is a 10-slide Pachachka, just like you're going to do. So once it starts, you know you've got 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And I'm going to introduce to you the concept of Pachachka by using a Pachachka, okay? So we're going to try this thing out. Let's do it. So